What's good, my tribe? This is day 75 of the 90-day YouTube challenge. As I get back into the swing of things here and trying to be more consistent with these videos so I can make it to the 90-day. So yesterday I talked a little bit about private trusts and lawful money. This is just a rabbit hole that I am currently going down as I am trying to create a corporation and a trust web for myself to help me focus and protect my assets and gains that I might be expecting to see from cryptocurrency in the next coming years. So what are trusts? I guess the official definition, at least according to this source here, says a trust is the right enforceable solely in equity to the beneficial enjoyment of property to which another person holds the legal title. So what does that mean? Well, a trust in itself is an entity. You can think of it like a corporation or a business or just a separate entity. The difference being with a trust, you can make it either private or public. So there's, as I kind of alluded to in the video yesterday, there's a number of different laws, or I'm not really sure about the term that they use, but basically we have many different areas of jurisdiction. So we have like natural law, common law, statutory law, equity law, stuff like that. And again, I'm still new to this, so I don't really fully understand it all completely. But the main idea being that statutory law is sort of the law of governments, and natural law is more of like a sort of common sense type deal of, hey, don't kill other people. We're in this together. Do unto others as you want to be done to you. The golden rule, so to say. So the idea behind trusts is that you can create an entity, if it's a private trust, that only operates in the natural law or the common law, meaning that it is not subject to statutory law. And this is sort of something that the elites or people who have a lot of wealth have been using for a number of years to be able to pass on their wealth and their assets through their bloodline without having to be subject to some of the taxes and the probate courts of statutory law. So let's unpack this a little bit more. How does one create a trust? So there are many different types of trusts, as I said. The one that I'm going to be focusing on here is private trusts, more specifically something that's called a private irrevocable express trust. So what is a private trust? Is a trust that is created by the natural right, meaning that it is our natural right, just as humans, as sovereign people, to create a contract with one another. And this is something that's protected by the Constitution of the United States. It says in Article 1, Section 10, Clause 1, no state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold, silver coin a tender in payment of debt, or pass any bill of attainder ex post facto law or law impairing the obligation of contracts. What does this mean is that, no matter what, we cannot pass a law that impairs the obligation of contracts. The obligation of contracts being that we have a right to form private contracts with one another, and that private interaction does not have to be subject to a government entity. So it can operate outside of statutory law if you create a private contract correctly. So this being said, this means that we can actually create a legal entity, a trust, without having to have permission from the government. So how does one do this? And why isn't everybody doing this? And this is what I've been learning, is sort of some of the secrets of these wealthy elites and how they are able to kind of operate. And the main thing that you need to do is be able to separate yourself from the trust. And so there's a number of little tricks and steps. The first one being is finding a non-blood related person, what is known as the grantor, to be able to grant some sort of property to you, making you a trustee. So if you were to want to create a private irrevocable express trust, you would find an object. It could be literally anything. You could use a coin, a small coin. It could be a pencil. It could be a peppercorn, is something that this course that I'm taking was talking about. It doesn't have to be anything valuable at all. But all you need to do is find somebody else who is not related to you to be able to grant you that object and create a private trust based off of, you need the articles of indenture, or you need some sort of constitution whenever you're creating a trust. So there are many different templates online for how to do that. But once you have an indenture, a sort of constitution, you have a grantor, all you need to do then is have somebody notarize, meaning that they witnessed the contract take place. And what you've done is set up a trust. You've set up a private irrevocable express trust where a third party, an adverse party, has granted you an object. And so this, let's say that it was a pen. So this pen is now in a trust. Let's say someone granted it to me and I am the trustee. So this pen isn't mine. I am just controlling and overseeing and being responsible for the trust that owns this pen. So you see this little kind of trick that's going on, right? You need somebody to grant you an object, because if you were to do it yourself, or if you were to have somebody within your bloodline grant you an object, it would not pass the control test, is what they call it here. And therefore, if you were to take it to court, your trust would be able to be penetrated because you kind of broke the law. You're not allowed to shake hands with yourself. You need to have a third party to grant you an object. But the good news is once that trust is created, that grantor doesn't need to do anything. They can go on with their life, not worrying about a thing, not have any obligation to the trust. That trust is now the trust is in the hands of the trustee. The trustee is then now responsible moving forward. So what this does is, again, it separates one's personal self from a trust asset. And what this does is it allows you to basically move all assets into a separate entity rather than owning personally. And this is something that, the wealthy families have used for a while. What they do is they create many different private trusts. They can create a trust web, and then they have those trusts connected to public entities such as corporations or public trusts, who can then operate within the statutory law of any given government. So what I've been learning is, if you want to operate like an elite does, the way to do that would be to create some sort of corporation or LLC that has a public bank account, which then goes into the other half of this rabbit hole with lawful money. Whenever you set up an account, you should always set up a account that redeems in lawful money. That way you completely remove the tax obligation on having to pay taxes on whatever comes through that entity. And then what you do is you have that entity file a lien against the private trust, meaning that all of the assets of the corporation are owed to this trust. So what does this mean? Well, that means that this entity, if one, at the end of the year, you want to pay taxes, there's this thing where if you have more liabilities than income, you don't have to pay taxes because you owe a whole bunch of money to some separate entity, right? So you basically are in debt, is what it looks like on paper. But if you're in debt to your own trust, in a sense, or a trust that you are the trustee of, then there's no problem. So you file a lien connecting this corporation to this trust, saying this corporation owes the trust $1 million. You can make it lucrative. You always want to highball it so you never hit that and go above it, because if you were, that means that this corporation will have more assets and therefore could be subject to taxes, as well as suing, which is a whole nother part of it. But the idea is that the way that these entities and these wealthy people operate is that these corporations are protected. All of their assets are connected to trusts. And this is how they get away without having to pay tons and tons of taxes. At least this is how I understand it. And it's a legal way to not have to pay taxes. This is not tax evasion. I am not by any means condoning not paying taxes. I am merely trying to share what I found as a way to move beyond that need, in a sense. So one thing, I guess, to kind of top it off that I have learned is that the tax system is not obligatory. It is actually totally your free will to take part in, as long as you are operating in lawful money. If you are redeeming your money in federal debt notes, which is connected to the Federal Reserve System, then yes, you are going to owe taxes on those federal debt notes. And the federal debt note is the default way to claim money, meaning that if you don't specifically opt to redeem in lawful money, then it's automatically assumed you are using the federal debt notes. And I'll go a little bit more into what that means tomorrow. But hopefully this was a sort of more in-depth explanation of the idea of trusts and why it would be a good idea to start a trust. Hopefully that came in clear. I mean, I'm still learning a lot myself. I'm still not very sure that I fully understand it, but yeah, hopefully this was a little helpful for you. So if you are interested in learning more, I recommend checking out or just researching private irrevocable express trusts. I'm going to drop a link possibly in the description of this video as well, which is my affiliate link to the course that I am currently taking that is actually teaching me all this material. So yeah, check that out if you're interested. And yeah, thank you for listening. As always, may peace be with you.